Hi, everyone. So today we have the privilege to share with you a fantastic panel about China because, as you may know, this market is very significant. For instance, we have 5 times more millennials in China than in the US. When it comes to Gen Z, if you count the generation as of 95, we have 260 million people. But there has been a lot of discussion lately about, how the potential of China should be assessed. So today, before we jump into the topic, I will ask each person to introduce themselves beyond the name and the position. What is their special relation to China so that you get a glimpse of what they are bringing to the conversation. So maybe, Olivier, you can start.
Yes, with pleasure. Hi, everyone. My honor to be here today. My name is Olivier Viejo. I'm the Vice President of Fine Fragrance Division for Asia. I've been in China for 9 years, in the dsm-firmenich for 24 years. So I've been really moving around very frequently, but I have to say that the Chinese experience is amazing and so many things that I would like to share with you today. Thank you.
Anne-Sophie, what about you?
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. So I'm Anne-Sophie. I'm in China since now 12 years, and I've been helping since 12 years foreign company to land, structure, and develop in Chinese market. I'm now the managing partner of the consulting firm KEYI, and we are helping foreign brands and Chinese brands to go abroad, to either Chinese brand goes abroad or foreign brand to go into China, agile and innovative way, as much as we can do.
What is you?
Hi, everyone. I am MuatasimAl Hinai, Managing Director of OMANLUXURY. We started collaborating with Anne-Sophie since, I think, 2 years ago to start in China market.
And for myself, I've been working in the fragrance industry for more than 20 years. And it's been 10 years that I've been monitoring and helping fragrance brands understand the taste of young Chinese. So this market, actually, we always say that it's a very fast moving one. And Olivier, you've been so long in the market. Can you tell us more about the changes that you've seen on this market over the last few years?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much for the question. As I said, it's very important for me to be here today because when it comes to be a benchmark for the industry in terms of domestic brands, this is really the most interesting market in Middle East in terms of capturing the trends ahead of time, capturing the needs of the consumers, and having these domestic brands that are going international very quickly. So when I speak about the Chinese brand, obviously I've been there for 9 years and I've seen many changes throughout all these years. I have to say that the past 3 years have been very difficult. Obviously, we know the reason. This has been hurting very significantly the expectations that we had in terms of consumption. Obviously, the fine fragrance growth, we were all expecting it will boom much faster than that, but it's a slowdown. We still have very high expectations that the market is going to keep increasing. And there is many reasons for us to be very optimistic. First one, there is thousands of young entrepreneurs launching brands all the time. In just 1 year, more than 2,000 brands have been registered in China, fragrance brands. Obviously, the mortality rate is extremely high. We can take this rule of the 80-20, it can apply. But what's very important is that these young entrepreneurs are very consumer savvy, are very digital savvy. They're very good at implementing the strategies on social medias. They're very good at leveraging TikTok. And they're very good also at making sure that they use the experiential part, like pop-ups, for instance. So pop-up is very important in China as a culture to enhance the brand, to bring awareness to the brand. And we're always talking about traditional retail. Well, in China, obviously, the biggest traditional retail is online. And Tmall or Douyin or TikTok is very important. But pop-up culture is extremely important in order to bring brand awareness. So I think that this is a very important and another major change that I've seen in the past few years, and I'll talk a bit later also about the biggest trends. But I think what's very important is more this gender fluid trend that has been happening for 3-4 years. Today, when you look at the digital native brands, indie brands, Chinese domestic brands, I would say that 90%, 95% of them are gender fluid. When we receive a brief, there is regardless of gender and regardless of age. So I think that's also a very important and significant approach to how we develop fragrances for the Chinese market.
So obviously the Chinese market is a very specific one, and from experience, players tend to underestimate the intercultural differences. So Muatasim, as you are entering China, can you tell us a bit more about how you have localized your strategy and what has worked for you on the Chinese market?
On the beginning, what we start, we get a knowledge from Centigrade's team, and we understand how is the market working on in China. And we have a knowledge how to market about our brand and how to understand the brand, how it works in China. And what we did, we use our culture, the Chinese market, always focusing in culture and heritage about brand. And we have, as a brand, we have a silk route between Oman and China. This is the main focus that we focus in our brand.
And Sophie, you are used to this kind of help for the brands. Can you tell us more about how you help the brands communicate and adjust to the Chinese market?
Yes. If I can use the example of OMANLUXURY, what we've done is, as Olivier said, the competition now in China is very fierce, not only among international brands, but international brands with local brands. So not being only international, being only foreigner is not enough. If sometimes before it was enough to be foreigner, and because we were foreigner, we were necessarily innovative, new, attractive. It's not enough the case now. So the foreign brands need to really understand the market, as Muatasim said, to really understand it, to really understand where they can position themselves and how they can adapt it and use their key element of their DNA to link directly to the consumer, to the local consumer. So for example, for OMANLUXURY, China love, for example, a storytelling, people behind, and also a country, like a point of origin. And with OMANLUXURY brand, it was really easy to use what they had already and to connect with local market, because they had the country with a very strong culture, with a strong, like something we could put on the map, with a culture, with ingredients, with strong storytelling. So this was very easy for us to develop and to attach also to the big trend of Silk Road. So it was almost like a gift that we needed to use in the right way, but use what you have also. And there is people behind. There is 3 founders that are very present, that are very fun to talk about their brand, that come to China. So this is really a gift also for the brand to not underestimate when you come to Chinese markets. And more generally, it's about finding which kind of pillar in your brand will make sense for local consumer. So I always like to the same example, but for example, in Europe or in other region, we are very into sustainability, green, etc. In China, we are not there yet. It doesn't mean that you need, for example, to forget it if it's the base of your brand, but you need to adapt the way you will reach the consumer, and you cannot just arrive being like, I'm 100% green or zero alcohol. You need to find some way for the local consumer to understand and connect with you. And finally, I think it's an interesting part for you as a brand and for the consumer to be able to connect is to think about your Chinese name. So it's not about just a translation, a transliteration of your name, but how you can express your name in Chinese, and it will be defined on how you will be in Chinese market. So this is very important, and it's also very interesting for you as a brand because it makes you understand better the Chinese market. And what I like to say also is if it's not you who will find it, it will be the consumers that will find it for you because they love giving nickname, and it will not necessarily be the one you would like to have. So don't forget this step and take the step ahead to decide who you want to be in China.
I totally agree. This collision of names and finding the right balance between your own DNA, your own culture, and adjusting to the local culture is very important. And Olivier, I'm sure that you have your own views about the importance of culture.
Well, yes, of course, the importance of culture. That's a very important topic for Chinese. The ecosystem of bringing the understanding of cultural Chinese elements to the mixed product are very important. So there's one thing that I want to mention here because a lot of people don't know that that China has actually a very long fragrance heritage. Talk of more than 2,000 years of ingredient and fragrance heritage. Obviously, this was the Silk Road, as Anne-Sophie has mentioned before. That's been a very important element to talk about how we could transfer and also bring a lot of incense. That was a very important ingredient that was used to different purposes, either for religious purposes or for home fragrancing or fragrancing your clothes. But I think the usage of these different ingredients throughout different dynasties has been very important in China in order to build a culture of ingredients and olfactive memories. So this is when we start already to see the beginning of shaping the olfactive landscape of Chinese perfumery. And there's been also a very important change. There's a before the Cultural Revolution and after the Cultural Revolution happening. So obviously after the Cultural Revolution in the 80s, we've seen a lot of international brands coming into China, rolling out the products directly, not necessarily adapting the products to the local market. So basically, for dozens of years, they've been introducing products that were for China, but not developed for China. And this has been, it's been taking us a lot of times, dozens of years, in order to start really building an olfactive culture in the Chinese market, where for the past 4 or 5 years, we've been starting to implement very strong culture of what are the ingredients that are important for the Chinese, what are the olfactive directions that are important for the Chinese. And we've seen recently that the olfactive spectrum has completely has moved to so many directions. And I think that's thanks to the fact that we've built the foundations of the olfactive culture, and all these elements of inspired ingredients from China or Eastern ingredients are part today of the creative directions that we develop on a day-to-day basis for the domestic brand. So yes, I want to highlight that part. I think it's very important, and it's important today to keep in mind that the market is very open. So take this opportunity, obviously, to encourage all of you to enter the Chinese market, because I think this is the right time now. The foundation is there from an olfactive acceptance, very large, and now they're ready to explore Arabian perfumery. And actually, there's a lot of them looking for brands. A lot of consumers know the brand already, and it's because the foundation is ready that today we have the opportunity to come with more olfactive diversity.
And I think one important point is acceptance, because just as a parenthesis, when you think about China, Korea, Japan, the way they relate smell and taste is very different. When you think about Chinese food, the flavor, the spices, the way of cooking has nothing to do with Japan. So deep down, you could say that the way people have been related to senses and ingredients is very different in China. And this also accounts for this wide acceptance. This being said, this market, one of the key specificity is that the niche brands are overperforming in China. So this is also one of the reasons this market is so fierce, because brands of all over the world want to have an eye on a market that makes 20% growth per year. So Muatasim, as a niche brand, could you tell us what we need to keep in mind when a niche brand is entering China?
First of all, we need to keep in mind how we will market about the brand there in China. We need to work with the right people there in China, and with the influencer, how we will work, and how we will exhibit to the event there in China. And the most important thing, how you will market about your brand. The Chinese consumer like to use a lot of like herbal smells, natural and herbal smells. So what I think, if you will market about, like for us, all of us, they think that we are an Arab brand, so we will have an oud fragrance. So we will not start to market about oud fragrance. And we will start in the beginning, like we will market about the fragrances that we have, like a light fragrance. After that, we can give an education to the consumer, what is the brand, how it will work. And we need to understand more about the fragrances that we will market.
And Anne-Sophie, do you think there is an equation for success in China? What is the business model for success in China?
I think we all talk already a little bit, but as I said, and as we said before, you need to have a very strong brand and product. So that goes through the storytelling, as I said, the founder, your origin, what your brand is going to bring. So don't lower, don't forget about this part. It's very, very, very important. You need to be innovative because China is innovative. They are fond of as you said, anything like in terms of like stream, in terms of digital, like they're really like one step ahead of us. So even if you have like a very cultural, a very traditional brand, be innovative. Also, don't forget about, we'll talk a bit later about the entry strategy market, but we talk a lot about digital. We know that Tmall, for example, or online sales platform are very, are number one and priority in China, but don't underestimate the retail because it's where it's not necessarily where you will make sales, but it's where you can express your brand and you can create a lot of brand awareness. So this can go, as Olivier said, through pop-up. You don't need to have like something very big, very like long term, but you need to be present physically into the market, either through, I don't know, exhibition, through a small pop-up, through collaboration. But don't forget in your strategy to integrate some physical presence, I think. And sorry, you need also to connect. So we cannot forget about digital. So you need to always create content and connect with your audience. So you need to talk a lot about your brand. You need to talk a lot about yourself. I know in some region, it's something that we don't really push about the founder, about himself. But in China, it's very important. They like to understand who is behind the brand, why he created that, what does he like, and make connection with the local market. And finally, I will say to be generous and truthful. You don't need to invent. You don't need to invent yourself. You don't need to push yourself and to be more Chinese than the Chinese. There is a lot of brands that tried that and it doesn't work. So be very generous. Be very truthful in your objective of sales, in your objective of expansion, in your objective to connect with the local market. And normally, with all of that, you will succeed. And don't give up. I will say also don't give up because as said Olivier, the market is still a bit shaky, but there is still a lot of opportunities. There is still a lot of growth. It's a new market for perfume. Alors, we can say yes or no, not in terms of history, but in terms of proposition, in terms of brand. So there is still a lot of things to think about, to innovate, and it's a great playground for brands, Chinese market.
So I understand it's all about how you introduce yourself, be it online or offline through the retail. You have to bring in innovation to keep the attention of people because it's a very crowded market, and be sincere. And actually, I must say, I personally saw how the brand OMANLUXURY was introduced to the audience during the last Shanghai Notes. And it was incredible because the introduction was so sincere and so new and so different. The Chinese consumers were really coming and asking a lot of questions. And we may have stereotypes about Chinese consumers liking light fragrance and Middle Eastern liking performance and strong sillage. But actually, you should get rid of all these stereotypes because the market is moving, and as you enter and bring something to the conversation, Chinese consumers are very open to learn and discover more and go beyond the stereotypes. So there is this whole preparation about how to introduce yourself, but there is also the regulation part. So, Anne-Sophie, can you tell us about how to navigate the regulations, because it's a very important part?
I won't be too long on that because it can be a bit boring. But I think it's very important because we all heard about Tory in Chinese market, about they stole my name, they stole my product, I couldn't control my distributor, I don't have social network anymore, go on and go on and go on. But I think it's also about we are not prepared enough for Chinese market, and weirdly, we trust very easily Chinese market. So it's very contradictory, but I can see it over my 12 years in China that we are as much defiant of Chinese market and we give our trust very easily to Chinese partner, to Chinese, etc. So be proud of what you have, be strong in your assets, and don't hesitate to say no and to protect yourself. So this goes by name. Protect your name in English. Be sure before you entering the Chinese market that your name is protected. Find a name in Chinese. As I say, it's interesting in terms of branding. It's interesting in terms of understanding the local market. And it's also a way for you to control the next step. Create your social network, again, under your name. It's super easy. In 1 hour, it's done. You don't need to have a Chinese company, as many people will tell you. You can do it with your business license, overseas business license. So do everything you can do under your name before you're entering the Chinese market. This is after the big question of product, because after we will talk a bit more about cross-border, etc. But in Chinese market, as I said before, at a point, you need to be physically present in the market. And to be physically present in the market, you need your product to be registered. So this is something that is costly. This is something that can be a risk when you're not sure yet about your strategy in the Chinese market. But you need to integrate it in your midterm strategy from day one, because you cannot have Chinese market as your number one priority or number two, or at least a key market, if you don't do this step, because you won't be able to pass to the next step if you're only available online. And after we will go in more detail after about that. But so this is something that you need to put in mind. It can be costly, but you can also have a strategy that is only some key products that are registered and the rest is cross-border. It is something completely fine with Chinese market. Very accustomed of that, because and it's also can be a strategy of your brand that in priority you can have your new launch in cross-border and the strong classic collection register. So whatever you choose, it needs to be a decision, not because Chinese market is complicated or it can be easy or you let it to someone else. You need to decide what you want to be, like you do to any other country. So don't let Chinese market scare you off. It's actually quite easy, quite transparent, as if we understand a bit all the parts of the legal and regulatory, but it's not that complicated. So don't be scared of that and protect yourself as much as you can under your own name.
So I see you smile. Muatasim, could you share your own experience and some insights about how navigating the regulatory system?
Actually, we were surprised about the registration because it's a bit expensive if you compare with other countries. It's different and it takes time in terms of registering the fragrances. I think Anne-Sophie knows that compare between like Europe, once we register in CPMP, maybe one for all our references, we pay only one reference in China. This is some experience that we face in China. But what I have seen, it's promising market in China.
So it's totally feasible.
Yeah.
And you mentioned also the cross-border and the choice of retail. So could you tell us a bit more about that? Because, when we saying going to China, it doesn't mean necessarily opening a physical store right away.
So there is many ways to enter into China. I will say the three main ways. There is first the cross-border, online versus offline. Let's start from the basic. Online versus offline. Obviously, offline, bricks and mortar, you have your own space, pop-up, whatever you can imagine. You have your product physically in China. So this is a strategy. Some brands go full on from day one because they think that they are a very retail brand. Some others think they can start with online. It's about decision and what you want to be. Online, in China, you have two ways, which means cross-border, you are not registered, or you are registered and you're fully online. Cross-border, it's something that I advise to my client because I think it's a good way to test and learn the market. It's a good way to start. It's a cheap way to start because you don't need to register your product, but it's not a permanent way and it's not something that you can keep forever and ever because you will be stuck somewhere. You're not available everywhere. You're available only in some online platforms that are registered for cross-border and you can never be physically into the market. So it's a good way when you prepare, like when I say all the steps to prepare to understand where you want to be, your strategy, we all want to make a bit of money during that. So it's a good way to make a bit of money. It's a good way to learn the market, to try it out, to have some first customer feedback. But it's also something that can be costly on the long term because as you're not present everywhere, how do you drive the customer to this specific marketplace? So you need to understand that cross-border is not enough by itself. You need to invest in lots in terms of content in marketing for the customer when he's on his phone to be able to reach your marketplace. So cross-border alone cannot work, but it's a good way to enter the market. When you've done that, everything is successful. You're convinced about China. You register your product. You can be everywhere online. And of course, the next step and the dream step for everybody is to have a retail. There is a lot of new way of being present in China. The traditional way, obviously, was Tmall or having your product in Sephora. And there is not much place in China. You need to understand also retail in China is very different from the rest of the world. We don't have key players yet in China except Sephora. But is Sephora a right place for niche brand in China? That's a question mark. We have new players entering the market now about multi-concept and multi-brand store that are very interesting to look at because they are, I think, the future of, and they are the presence in China, but will be maybe the future outside of what can be the retail. You heard about Armé, but Armé was one of the first one to create this multi-brand concept store. And they, with a very, very, very strong concept for each of their stores. So this is something that you can look at because it gives you a good idea of what is Chinese retail. And to finish, as I said before, retail in China is not necessarily about sales. Obviously, you need to sell and you want to sell, but it's about experience. And most of the retail store you will go in China about perfume, you will see that the product is not the main character in the store. It's the experience first, either in digital, either like because it's a complete art exhibition, a completely immersive experience. But sometimes the product, you won't even see the product. The product will come second. So when you go in retail in China, you need to think about it. How do I want to surprise my customer? How my brand is so particular and so special, and voilà, what can I offer to the Chinese market?
So in this part, we see the very pragmatic information to take into account. The legislation is super important, but it's totally feasible. And then the retail is super important because China is a very seamless ecosystem between online and offline. You don't necessarily sell and give incentive of the sales people offline because people go see your product online, then go offline, experience the brand, and go back online and buy. And it's like this, back and forth. So you have to build your own system altogether. And as Anne-Sophie said, cross-border can be a way for brands to primarily test the waters. But keep in mind that Chinese consumers are super connected and they may also find you on your digital abroad or in your origin country. So this is a chapter about, pragmatic things to keep in mind. Let's switch to the trendy and to the vision of this market. So maybe Olivier, you mentioned before that you've seen Chinese brands rising lately. Can you tell us more about that? 2,000 brands is enormous.
Yes, it's a lot. Thank you. There's been a lot of brands that have been launched in the past 4 or 5 years. I can give you 3 examples that are very important. So for those of you who've been in China or live in China, you won't be surprised by the first one, speed. This is critical. So this is basically the most important word in order to make sure that you are successful in China. Brands are launched in 3 months. From the moment we receive a brief to the moment that they manufacture and they launch the products in the market, in the retail or online, it's 3 months. So it's very fast. And I'm not saying that the products are always perfect when they are launched. I'm just saying that you have to be, why? Because you need to create the buzz. And that's the most important part. You need to catch the trend. When you're a domestic brand and you are competing against international brands, you know that international brands are going to take a long time before they arrive in the market. So you need to make sure that you are ahead of time. And being ahead of time is making sure you're creating the buzz very, very quickly. So again, you use TikTok, influencers, you create a buzz, then you change, you do another variant, and you basically have a very dynamic portfolio. So we're not talking about domestic brands, that are making a business plan of 3-4 base business. No, they're usually working with a lot of SKUs, a lot of variants, because the objective is about launching the trends and catching the attention of the consumers. So that's the first part. The second part, I already mentioned about it before. The large olfactive spectrum is fundamental. Catching some elements of the Chinese culture are very important, like the teas. We know that they've been working a lot on that very recently. Osmanthus is also very important and part of the olfactive culture of Chinese. But we see also the expansion of the woods. And I think that's very, very important for all of us, all of you here, because the olfactive spectrum of woods has been expanding so much that today we're moving from people having different type of woods according to different occasions. And this is also, we have to understand the way consumers in China are using perfume. It's experience driven. It's occasion driven. We're not talking of a beauty ritual. They don't wake up in the morning and spray perfume to go to work, or not, right? They're going to use a brand or perfume when they have a special occasion. If I have to go to work and I want to transmit a certain type of like strengths in front of, I don't know, customers, I'm going to use a certain type of wood because this is what I want to transmit. If I want to go on a date, I'm going to use a special variants. And you have social medias that are mastering the way of segmenting the market. And rather than talking about segmentation of floral, fruities, like we like to do in the industry, well, no, they're segmenting by lifestyle, they're segmenting by emotion, they're segmenting by occasion. So basically, when you go on Redbook, which is a very important platform in China, you look at your brands, and all the brands are clustered by different emotions or lifestyle or occasions, right? And that's a very important way of understanding how consumers are shopping, okay? And the third part, last but not least, consumers. Obviously, we're talking of 550 millions of Gen Z and millennials. This is almost half of the population. In a country of 1.4 billion people, when half of the populations are Gen Z and millennials who are driving the interest on buying perfume and using perfume, this is, and I want to sound very optimistic now because we started being a little bit pessimistic about the situation, but I want to be positive because they are the future. They are the one who are starting to getting educated on the usage of perfume. They are very savvy about the understanding of brands. They know everything about the brand, the founders, the origins, the ingredients, and they know very well who are the perfumers who created the fragrances. So this is amazing when you're talking with them. So this, thanks to the social medias, they have the culture of perfume. And these 550 million of Gen Z and millennials are going to be the future because they want to have unique fragrances, distinctive fragrances, and that's going to be a success factor of making sure that your brands are going to be successful tomorrow in China.
So Olivier, you highlighted the fact that it's a very fast market. You need to keep up all the time. So a market where consumers are using fragrance with contextual usage for work, for date, for occasion. It wouldn't be the same. And that's why they have 3 to 10 different fragrances, not only their own signature fragrance, even though they always want sticks about themselves. And the third point that you mentioned is that consumers are very up to date and go very deep into the information that the brands provide, from the creation inspiration to the perfumers. So this is a very exciting moment and a very exciting opportunities. What did you see, Anne-Sophie, as trends and opportunities in the market?
There are a lot. Now, if I continue with what she said, because you already said a little bit, but for example, in terms of experience, it made me think that last year I had a lot of brands, for example, that enter the market through mini program where instead of saying, what do you like? Are you more sweet? Are you what we will do more in more traditional way? It was more about how do you feel today? Do you feel like sunny? Are you more solar? Are you more, are you going into a date? Do you want to be powerful? And through those questions in this mini app program, it will be like, okay, today you need to use this perfume. So it's really linked to what you're saying, that it's not necessarily about the taste of like, oh, they are more fruity or they are more woody, etc. It's about like, how do they feel today and how do they want to express their feeling and their emotion with perfume. So it's, and this is endless because it's not linked. It draws so many opportunities, so many like new app, a new way of connecting with your customer through this way because it's linked to emotion. So this linked to all of what we said during the conference, but like be truthful and connect with the customer. In terms of opportunities, I will say what is going still very, very, very strong. It's always collaboration. And in China, the more the collaboration, the more extremities, the better it is. So you don't have to collaborate with another perfume brand, with another cosmetic brand. It can be with candy, it can be with whatever you can imagine, but the further, the more jazzy it is. And this go to my next point, but you need the Gen Z is a lot of people, so it's a lot of opportunity, but they need to be surprised all the time. It's a very high demanding generation that if you don't surprise them enough, they will switch. It's not us that we have the same perfume since 20 years. It's you don't surprise me enough, I will go next. So you need to invest yourself a lot, not necessarily. Of course, it costs money, but it's not always about money. It's also about investing yourself in the Chinese market to always be as fast, to be on top of the market, and to always be, if you can, it's very difficult, but a step ahead of what the other people will do next. And in terms also of other opportunity, more pragmatical, but we see also, as Olivier said, like there is a number of niche brands appearing and being created every day in China that it's a bit crazy. We saw also a lot of diversification of existing brands. So now, for example, fashion, they do a lot of, they diversify themselves a lot into fragrances. Also the home, the whole question of home, it's a big opportunity in China, which before was not necessarily important. Now, how to make your home feel warm, feel very a space that you want to be. So this is obviously since COVID, but so this creates also a lot of opportunity in terms of fruit diffuser and scents, etc. So this is a good opportunity for Middle East. I have so many, but I think this is already quite a lot. And just I will finish, as you said, it's always an evolving market, and it's not necessarily about what we think that, oh, they only like flowery, they only like faux, they only like fruity, etc., etc. It's a very market.
Even it was surprise in the last exhibition.
That the last one is what that to say. They love your perfume.
Yeah, they like the strongest perfume that we have. The Janan and Ram, it's very strong, but they like it.
That was our biggest surprise last year because OMANLUXURY is one of our first brands from Middle East to entering the market, but really with a strong strategy. It's been 2 years that we are working on it, and we are like, okay, there is not that many Middle East niche perfume brand in the Chinese market. Let's see how we'll be welcomed. And we've done a lot of exhibition together, and they love it. We receive a lot of good feedback. What they love the most, it's the strongest.
Yeah.
And actually, you have to keep in mind that your core target may be very specific. There was this acceptance. You know, we have for a long time this idea that Chinese can accept only light fragrance, but it is not true. It's like you give them Mozart and at home, they're listening to Wagner. Think about the food. They can accept very strong sensorial profiles, and there are beliefs behind that. The way we perceive the wood, as you said, is also because they have their own thinking and their own belief associated to ingredients. So if we recap, in terms of opportunities, it's what they want to be, how they want to feel. It's a conversation where they will go to you with their own question, and you fuel the conversation with innovation and novelties like cross collaborations that keep people excited. Also, the third point is double way conversation, and then the extension on categories, home scent, body care. Don't forget that. So maybe Olivier, from your point of view, do you want to add something about trends?
Well, yes, there is a willingness from us at dsm-firmenich to keep investing, because I think there is we all have a very strong responsibility not only from fragrance houses, but also from the brands, obviously, the retailers, the medias, to keep increasing the understanding on the usage of perfume. Again, if I go back to the fact that we're talking of a large market, the day we're going to increase the penetration rate of using perfume on a daily, this is going to be massive. So how do we make sure that we start transforming this market on becoming a beauty ritual and not only an experiential market that is occasion-driven? And so our willingness is obviously to invest at dsm-firmenich with people's capabilities. We've been the first ones in 2019 to open a creative center dedicated to the fine fragrance market in China, putting people in experts, cross-functional experts. We've invested also on understanding traditional ingredients, the usage of ancient perfumery, and how do we understand the past, today's modern perfumery, we can better forecast the future. I think it's very important that we increase the investment in terms of consumer understanding because the market is shifting very, very rapidly. So it's by testing fragrances, having benchmarking studies, and understanding how fast the consumers are ready to changes that we're going to be able to come with the right offerings in terms of olfactives, in terms of concepts. And honestly, it's a country of opportunities. It has always been. It has slowed down a little bit, but we all trust China is going to remain a big country of opportunities in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And last question for you, Muatasim, before we go to the question part. As you are entering the market, what are the collaborations and the partners and influencers you settle to navigate this market?
We work with first of all, we need to have a right content in our platform, like WeChat and other thing. Like we give a influencer that they are using, some of them TikTok and KOL China. And the thing that we are using, we give them our fragrance and they will review and they can buy through online. And this is the thing that we did now in beginning of our selling in China.
Thank you. So now is the time for the question, if you want to go further into the conversation.
What platforms, apart from WeChat, are popular in China? Where do you go to show your brand, to talk about it? Only WeChat?
No. There is a full ecosystem. You have Red, you have Weibo, you have Douyin, you have Jingdong, you have the one where you put content and you have where you sell. I don't know, maybe you want to add something?
First, the social network in China are completely different from the rest of the world. The pure content that exists outside of China is not necessarily accessible to the target. Depends of your target, but in China. But there is many, as Dao said, there is obviously WeChat that is more institutional. It's more about brand awareness and building content and expressing what is your brand. You can link it obviously to mini program to sales. There is a little red book, Hongxiao, that I will say it's a bit like Instagram book. It's more about lifestyle, what you want to express. We're talking about emotion, occasion. So it's how the brand would like to express themselves.
Very visual.
Yeah, very visual, very trendy. We have Douyin that will be similar to the TikTok, that is more for KOL, more for live stream. So, and many other platforms that are more platform like Jingdong, etc. So there is many platforms. You don't have to be everywhere at the beginning. And it's also being part of what is your brand and your strategy. Do you want to build more content about who you are? Are you already outside of China a very visual brand? Are you a very KOL influencer brand? It really depends on who you want to be and how you want to develop. But I will say to start having Xiaohongshu and WeChat is must. It's a must.
Yeah.
You cannot go without these two. One, you build your brand and what is your brand. And second, you're trying to connect. And what do you want to make them feel?
And also I would add, when brands are entering China, sometimes they open a Weibo or WeChat and they don't fuel the content quick enough, or there is not enough content and this is not good. So the moment you open your social media, you need to make sure that you can give a lot of content, Timo included. Any other questions?
Yes. like to know how works the cross-border distribution. Is it regulated? Do you have to use special importers or cross-border companies? How does it work?
It's special importer, and basically they are your product. Like being very pragmatical, your product goes to free trade zone. So it's importers that have and distributors that have special license to have their warehouse in free trade zone. So they technically never touch Chinese land, and it's sent per order. So when someone is ordering your product, it will be directly taken out from the warehouse directly to your home, which is feasible and interesting in China because of the logistics that is very fast. Like it's in less than 24 hours, you can have your product at your door. So this is what makes also cross-border desirable for some brand and also for brands. For in terms of general, that's why online it's that strong also in China thanks to logistics.
Thank you.
Yes, we have time for one last question right here.
Hello. As Olivier, you told that the one of the biggest strength that a niche or a small brand in China would look is the speed at which they are launching their new products, right? So I would like to understand that what is the trend setting criteria in China? For example, there are markets where the celebrities or the influencers are the people who create the trend. So for you as a brand to capitalize that trend, you have to first be aware of what exactly is going around. So how is this Chinese market? What is the criteria of this trend? How are brands capturing that? Okay, this is the trend that we have to capture and maybe release a product around that.
Well, thank you very much for your question. It can be long. So, because obviously there's many ways of spotting the trends. Obviously, as we mentioned already, quite frequently, social medias are very important area where I would say a young generation are spending 23 hours a day on social medias, looking at everything that is happening. Live streamers, influencers are really the ones who are also pushing a lot in terms of activity, in terms of what's going on. So this is just a way that is more through the channel of celebrities, influencers. But the trends are macroeconomic, right? So they come from different industries. I can tell you a trend can come from, I'll give you an example. We always saying that China loves coffee, and everybody was thinking that Chinese are coffee lovers. And there is full of coffee stores everywhere. But it's the way you understand the trend by understanding what is actually what matters to them was not necessarily coffee. It was the fact that they use milk, basically. It's latte, it's cappuccinos. 80% of the coffees they are buying are lattes and cappuccinos. So everybody was thinking, and if we look at it from a fragrance house, we would think, oh, maybe we need to work on coffee notes. Well, no, it's about how you work on these gourmand, latte, milky notes that matters. So I'm just giving you an example of how you spot the trends. Basically, what matters is that you look at different industry, cross-industry, and we have teams in marketing that are dedicated to do that all the time. So in our teams, our marketers are here to make sure that they spot it, they cluster it, and they present something that you could use as a future trend for your brand by using some of the examples like I give you right now. Yeah.
Panelists, thank you very much. We are all out of time. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our incredible Chinese market panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dao.